don't usually do videos like this. I usually tend to stick to top 10s and rankings, but I decided to do a review on one of my absolute favorite movies of all time. Literally, it is in my top 2 movies ever, and that is Paranormal Activity. Paranormal Activity basically started the found footage craze of the 2000s and ended Saw's reign for October. It's one of the most iconic found footage movies behind the original Blair Witch Project, and for good reason. I mean, it's one of the few movies to be rated R just for being that scary. It's also the most profitable movie ever made, because this film was made for absolute dirt. I mean, $15,000 seems like a lot of money, but for a movie, that's nothing. For example, when I said most profitable movie ever made, you probably thought of the highest grossing movies ever made, Avatar or Avengers Endgame. But Avengers Endgame, for example, costed $356 million to make. That's a lot of money, but let's break it down even further. RDJ was paid $20 million for his base role in Avengers Endgame, which, if you do the math, that is 1,333.33 times the amount of the budget for the original Paranormal Activity. RDJ, one actor, was paid over 1,000 times more than the budget of the original Paranormal Activity. And it even spawned 6 sequels, which I personally think are all pretty good, but I can understand why you don't like the sequels. They're repetitive, and they're relatively the same thing. So I understand why those ones are disliked, but I don't understand why this original movie is disliked so much. I have seen multiple videos, multiple people going on record saying that this is a terrible movie, and I am here to tell you that it is not only not a terrible movie, but one of the best horror movies ever made, and my personal second favorite movie of all time. So let's dive into the Oren Peli 2000s horror masterpiece. Let's start off with the scares. I not only had this movie on my top 10 scariest movies, but also the ending made my top 10 scariest movie moments. That's because this movie is so damn scary, but not in ways that you'd think for a horror supernatural found footage movie. You'd expect it to be jump scare heavy and super predictable, and it's actually the complete opposite. This movie makes you scared of nothing. It's because you expect the jump scares. Every part where with a movie like, say, Annabelle or in the Insidious franchise, there would be a jump scare there where you can tell exactly when the jump scare is going to happen. I mean, you can count it down. You go, all right, music swells down and it goes quiet. 1, 2, 3, jump scare. In this one, when that moment happens, nothing happens. So you are just left on edge thinking that there's going to be a scare and refusing to let your guard down. So you're just on edge this entire movie, which I think is so effective, which it's just a different way of scaring people where they are so paranoid that a scare will happen and then it doesn't. So in these endless scenes where there's like, you know, it's quiet and you're like, okay, this is where the jump scare is going to be. And you like tense up and you really think, oh my god, there's going to be a jump scare. There's going to be a jump scare. There's going to be a jump scare. Maybe you're even looking away from the screen. You got your hands over your face, something like that. And there just isn't a jump scare. So eventually you're like, oh, okay, maybe there isn't a jump scare. And the second you let your guard down, oh my god! But also that isn't this whole movie's hand. It has a whole bag of tricks that are executed perfectly. This movie builds tension beautifully. It successfully makes the audience on edge and is able to just deliver a nice, terrifying movie. Silence in this movie is the scariest thing about it. Like, I always think of that scene where Mika and Katie are downstairs at the ending and you just hear it go silent. And you don't know what happened, and it just leaves you waiting. Then, once you get the reveal, it scares you. So it is able to make the buildup just as scary as the actual scare itself. But possibly the most effective part of this movie is the bedroom shot. Now, this is just a single shot that is the iconic part of this movie. You see it on the poster. You see it all over all of the marketing. This bedroom shot where Mika sets the camera up on a tripod. And this movie conditions you to be scared of a shot. Whenever it cuts back to this bedroom shot, you know that something's about to happen. You know it's about to go down.
It's about to go down.
you get ready for a scare. And I remember seeing videos of people seeing this in theaters, and it would cut back to that bedroom shot, and people would start screaming because they knew that something was going to happen. So, like, the second you see this shot and you notice this, you know that it's about to be a night, then this shot comes and you brace yourself like, oh, yeah, we're going to need to get ready for this because something is about to happen. And sometimes that fear completely pays off, and sometimes it leaves you hanging and you're left on edge for a scare that never comes. So, in summary, this movie is terrifying. One of the scariest of all time, if you can see it in the right, environment. But it is terrifying. It's amazing. It uses nothing and silence like a deadly weapon. So that's why I think this movie is terrifying. Most people complain about the characters in this movie because 50% of the characters are completely insufferable. There are two characters in this movie, Katie, the sympathetic one, and Mika, the absolute asshole. Even I can admit Mika is just a huge dick. Like, he is a massive douchebag. But that's something that is so great about it, because if both characters are in on it, then it isn't as effective, because then obviously they just leave the house, or they dip, or they'd be able to solve it pretty quick. But Mika is so good for me because not only is he an asshole, but he also brings the humor for the film, which there isn't a lot of it, but the humor that is in here, it's provided by Mika. But there is one moment where you really get to see a glimpse at who Mika is besides just the douchebag that we see him as. And it's in the ending where Mika is asleep and Katie gets up, she's like catatonic. We know she's possessed at this point, and she stares at Mika for a little bit, then walks downstairs. And once she's downstairs, again, you get that silent that is super terrifying. And then Mika starts screaming bloody murder. And this one little scene where you see Mika, without any hesitation, spring up and sprint downstairs. So, despite the fact that he is a giant douchebag, he loves his girlfriend. So, that's kind of respectable. And on the crappy boyfriend side of things, some people think he's unrealistically stupid and unrealistically, dismissive of his girlfriend. Speaking from personal experience, he's not. He is completely realistic as just an asshole that people will encounter in everyday lives, and actively mocking her for her feelings, including her feelings of terror, where she's genuinely scared and he mocks her for it. So I completely think that his acting, his assholeness is completely a real thing that I've gone through, and many other people, I'm sure, have had experiences just like this. Someone he supposedly loves, and he just doesn't care about her feelings because she feels that they're wrong. But on the other side of the character aspect, we have Katie, one of my absolute favorite characters in cinema. She is so sweet and caring, and really makes you feel bad when Mika is rude to her because you truly care about her.
I'll kiss you when I kiss the camera.
And she does appear in pretty much all of these movies, so it's fun to see her show up in the later ones. But she also doesn't take any shit, and she yells at Mika for his antics, and despite Mika telling her not to call the demonologist because he's got it, she eventually just does it because she needs to. But one of the greatest scenes in this movie that really shows you who each of these characters are is the Ouija board scene, because I think I've talked about this in my dumbest one, I don't remember, but I've talked about this scene before, where Mika, after the demonologist leaves, Katie's like, okay, promise me you won't buy a Ouija board, because the demonologist just said, it's going to encourage the demon, it's going to make it, you're basically inviting it in. And so Katie says, Mika, promise me you won't buy a Ouija board, and he does, in fact, promise. But he does break that promise, or I guess not technically, because he borrows a Ouija board.
Don't you look at me like that. You promised me you weren't going to mess with that stuff.
No, I promised you I wasn't going to buy a Ouija board.
Oh,
I didn't buy a Ouija board.
You knew exactly what I meant.
I borrowed a Ouija board.
And then he also, brings the Ouija board in right before date night. Mika, dude, you just ruined date night completely. And if you want proof that he did, they come back 2 hours later, and Katie is still yelling at him about it, meaning she yelled at him probably all of dinner, and really just makes it so funny to think about that. And also, I just love Katie, and it's fun to see her just, berate this idiot.
What the hell are you doing, Mika?
Come on, help me.
are you doing?
I'm gonna talk to it.
Look at me.
I told you I was.
You promised me you weren't going to. You look at me like that.
So that's a great scene. I think it's funny. I think it's effective at showing us who both of these characters are. So that's one of my personal favorite parts of this movie. But a main complaint I often hear, and a main complaint I hear for found footage movies as a whole, I guess, is that the acting sucks. I completely disagree with that. This movie is supposed to be real people just going about their life, and they nail it. I mean, especially Katie. For a lot of these scenes, they didn't even really have scripts. They just were like, all right, you guys just got to get to this certain point. Go. And they just act so naturally because they're just acting like normal people. That's it. Never for one moment in this movie did I be like, yeah, no, that's not how people would act. Because, like, yeah, they're just acting how they would act in real life. So I love the acting and I love the characters. And you're wrong if you don't. So, I'm kidding, obviously, but they're great. Most found footage horror movies are made found footage as a cheap gimmick or, something because they don't have enough money. But with Paranormal Activity, it feels sincere and just feels right. Let's make this clear. Paranormal Activity knows that it's not real. Blair Witch did that and nailed it. So people know that Paranormal Activity is fake. But this movie is still presented to you as though it is actual footage that is found by the police between the cards that say night one. But also, this movie is light and quick and doesn't overstay its welcome. It's short and to the point. And not only that, but it's so sincere with all the little camera dissolves and the cards that tell you what happened before and after. It's just so sincere in its concept and actively makes the film better for me that this found footage aspect is just a massive part of the movie that really makes me love it even more. And that's really all I got to say. I don't have much to say about it. I just wanted to point out that it's great that it's found footage. Now, when I say nostalgia, you probably assume, oh, he has nostalgia for this movie. He watched it when he was younger. He watched it when he had something happened. That's not it. I do kind of have nostalgia for the movie at this point, but I have nostalgia for the style. Not like found footage movies. The camcorder style. Because I grew up where every holiday, my parents would pull out this camcorder, and we had one of these, and they would record us opening presents on Christmas, opening our Easter baskets on Easter, our birthdays, just any random moment. I remember watching one where it was me learning how to ride a bike, and we would record all these major things in our lives, and we would get them on these little DVDs, which I know nobody gets DVDs anymore, but I have them, and they're called, I used to call them the Ethan movies, because I love them because, I mean, the first 5 we had were only about me before my brother was born. So I called those ones the Ethan movies, and then we got a nice stack of other ones that are all about our family. And I remember having so much nostalgia for just watching these because, I mean, for me, it was like, first of all, these things that I don't remember because I was a baby, and I get to know, like, oh, that's where I got that toy from. And for some reason, that was so cool for me. And also, it was cool that I'm in a movie, dude. Like, I'm watching a movie that's just about my life, and that's me right there. So I loved watching these, and this movie is the only movie I've ever seen that has accurately and effectively matched that feel. Like, it looks exactly like that camcorder, because even the little dissolves that are hidden into this movie, like, that are just cuts that they hit it with a dissolve, that's exactly what they would do when we sent in our clips to the people who would turn it into a disc, is that they would just put a little dissolve in between the recordings. So, like, if it was the same day, they just put a little dissolve there, and it would continue on. And I, like, just those little dissolves, those little things about this that really made me love it, and just really hit me in the nostalgia for just these movies, because, like, it feels like the Ethan movies. And I love that. I guarantee you guys believe me, and you don't really need proof, but if you do need proof, here are the DVDs. These are the Ethan movies. Now is the part where I talk about the negatives of the movie, or in my case, the positives, because a lot of these negatives not only are just flat out not true, but a lot of people believe them to be true, and they're not. But I'll just go through and talk about some of the negatives of this movie. So, starting off, I already talked about some of these, but the character and the acting, not a negative. They're acting like real people. That's completely fair, and I already talked about how Mika is one of the main complaints, and I love him. but there is still a few more that I can talk about. The first one is that the movie's boring and slow, and if you think that, honestly, I can't dispute it. Like, that just means you don't like the film that it is. If you think it's boring and slow, then I guess, first off, you don't have a very, very good attention span, but also, that's fine. The slow parts are, the slow burn, like, slow build for me is one of the parts of the movie that I absolutely love about it, but if that's a negative for you, then I can see why you don't like this movie, so I guess that's fair. And the complaint that it's too boring because it is really just people living their lives, again, fair. I can't dispute that, but it's also why I love it, because you get to see these actors just acting naturally, and it is, like, there is enough scary moments built in for me that it's never boring, and, like, every night you pretty much get a new scary thing that moves the story forward, but I can get how you see it as a negative, like a boring slog, but I see it as a completely unique and well-crafted movie because it builds up the entire time, and I just love it. The final complaint I often hear is the only one that I think is flat out wrong. If you think this, you are flat out incorrect. Like, it is false. It is a false statement. When I say that Paranormal Activity is one of my favorite movies of all time, the most common response I get is, oh, I haven't seen that one because, I get motion sick. Or, I don't watch those kinds of movies because it shakes around and, makes my head hurt. If that is the reason that you haven't watched Paranormal Activity, because someone told you, like, oh, if you have motion sick, don't watch it, you'll get sick. Go find whoever told you that, punch them in the face, and then go put in this movie. Because it doesn't, there's no shaky cam. Like, when people say that, I'm genuinely like, what? Like, do you want to know what over half of this movie is? The camera sitting on a tripod in the corner of the room. Remember when I talked about that iconic bedroom shot? Yeah, nobody holding the camera there. It's just sitting there on a tripod, looking at the bed. Not moving. The rest of the movie is them barely even walking around in their house. Like, it's a relatively normal-sized house. There's not anywhere they can really run with the camera, so it doesn't shake. There's no shaky cam. How do you guys... if you're talking about Cloverfield or the Blair Witch Project or any of the other found footage movies, I get it. But this is Paranormal Activity. And that's going to be it for today's video. Remember, if you did enjoy, make sure to hit like and subscribe. So when you want to see more videos like it in the future, hit the bell notification and be notified when I post any brand new videos. Otherwise, comment down below some of your own thoughts and opinions about Paranormal Activity. Tell me how I'm wrong. Tell me how I'm right. Be respectful about it. Comment down below some more video ideas for me. And until next time, I'm Ethan Horror. This has been Ethan Horror.